God, I love that song. Hello and welcome to the 2023 Revolucion, a 30-day digital festival celebrating all things Latinidad. This event is brought to you by Sacred Heart University's School of Communication, Media, and the Arts, and of course, Todo Wafi. You are joining us for the LGBTQIA in Latinidad representation panel. I'm your moderator, Juan Ayala, contributor over at MediaVillage.org and host of the podcast Actors with Issues. And joining me for this panel discussion, we have film director, producer, and actor Andy Delorbe, Sylvia Roldán, storytelling coach, and Daniel Herrera, art director at Clear Channel Outdoor. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome and happy Hispanic Heritage Month. What a time.
Ooh.
So I'd love to start off with a pretty simple question. So, while pride is often associated with our LGBTQ plus community, I want to delve a bit more into our overall personal identities, which sort of combine everything from gender and culture to our ethnicity, nationality. So we'll start off with Sylvia, but what does pride mean to you when we celebrate all of these aspects of each other?
Pride for me, having been raised in a home where no one in my family was documented, it meant that there was a sort of liberation. I had the opportunity to be proud out loud without that fear of deportation that many people in our community face. And I think that being anchored in that pride, being anchored in no one can tell you not to speak your language, no one can take anything away from you, having parents that could advocate for me showed me that I could be proud of everything that I am, everyone that has come before me, and anything that encompasses who I am. So I'm extremely grateful for that.
And Andy, what about you? What does pride mean to you?
Pride for me is like being able to hold my partner's hand and be myself and have them be themselves. I've dated a lot of people that were in the closet, and that made it difficult for me. And to see how it affected them, because they weren't out, I think it means a lot to have pride and be yourself and be out and hold your lover and kiss your lover, be yourself. I don't think a lot of people understand how it imprisons both you and the person that's in the closet. I think I dated a person that was in the closet for so long that it took away of me being proud for a moment, me forgetting that I can hold someone's hand for a moment and that it was okay. I forgot how to be proud for that moment. So being out and proud means being myself and feeling free, because it's two of you who are actually in this not literal jail, but a metaphoric jail.
And Daniel, what about you? What does pride mean to you?
It's changed a lot throughout the years, and I'm at a place now where pride is the space to be myself, to be LGBTQ, a member of LGBTQI, and also be Hispanic. And it's just all these, I work at a place where I get to work on monthly campaigns for Pride and Hispanic Heritage Month. And to be able to represent myself in these campaigns through art is how I represent pride for myself and how I express it.
And I always love asking these questions whenever I do sort of panel interviews like this, especially when we talk about representation. But growing up, was there a performance or a project you saw that really hit home and made you feel seen and represented for the first time? And Andy, let's start with you.
With me, I would say the L word, because there was a lot of things that I was afraid of that I dealt with because I saw how it was handled in the L word. I was able to resonate the pain of certain things that happen in the L word. And it also made me want to be myself, because I was like, you know what? I am tired of dressing like a girl when I don't want to dress like a girl. And all these women look happy dressing the way they want to dress. So the L Word did it for me.
Mhm. And Dan, what about you? What was that performance or project that first stuck with you?
So, I was thinking about this, and growing up, I didn't really see representation or something that stood out to me until like later, where I was almost an adult. The closest thing to it, I would say, was the show Ugly Betty. It was a Hispanic family making their way, um, dealing with issues on a regular basis, but obviously more to the extreme. But Betty had a nephew who later came out, but throughout the show, everybody loved him, but he was closeted. And that was the closest thing I saw myself in where I could relate, but it still wasn't like a full encompassing picture of who I am. But it was a great start because I think it opened conversations for a lot of people.
And Sylvia, what about you?
I definitely agree with Andy because L Word every week. Oh my gosh, L Word. Carmen. Oh, anyway.
Yes, Carmen.
Only to find out she wasn't Latina, but she was on the show, so it was fine. Excuse me while I blush. Anywho, as far as films go, while they weren't Latina, because of the lack of, I feel like, lesbian women films, saving face to me has been that anchor to see just two women from conservative families be able to come together and share their story. And then later on, as far as like Latinas go, Mosquita y Mari, again, just like coming of age. To me, like I feel like so much of the LGBTQIA community outside of the community is sexualized, that to be able to see stories of love. I mean, I absolutely understand that, that people want sex and that's fine. But to see a diverse narrative of what the community can be like and what a story can develop, what a relationship can be like, particularly at a young age when, again, it's not about sex. When I'm just trying to figure out who do I like, what am I going through. So to see those stories, I think are like so important. So those two for sure.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to especially queer storytelling, like you said, it is sort of over sexualized, especially for myself being bisexual. I feel like bisexual people on TV and film are sort of seen, they're hyper sexualized. Like, oh, they can't keep their hands off of men or women. It's like, what? That's not really how it, I mean, there's sort of that nuance that was lacking in that writing and storytelling. But I think one of the first ones that really impacted me was on the show Glee. There was a character of Kurt who was queer and had a very sort of butch dad, and his dad was raising him because his mom had passed. And I remember sort of getting in trouble watching that show once the character came out, and I wasn't really allowed to watch it anymore, so I had to sort of DVR and watch it on our like other TV in secret because I wanted to continue to see that story sort of get fleshed out. And more recently, the show Love Victor really hit home for me because it's about this queer brown Latino kid in a conservative family and moving to a new town. That's exactly what I was going through in high school. So more recently, for each of you, what is a more recent representation or storytelling that's been particularly impactful for you? Daniel, we'll start with you.
I just watched, and I was a late bloomer when it came to it, One Day at a Time on Netflix. And they talked about everything that most Hispanic families look the other way. Like they will be very open about, oh, this is the girl. There was no undertones to anything because they really wanted to bring everything up to the surface. And I think it was the first show at that time where they really talked about they, them as a person, as a one being. So I was so surprised how open this was. And this is meant to be a family show for young kids to watch too. So I really loved that they put this Hispanic family in this modern time, and even the elders in this family are learning about what's going on in the world today and how people want to be represented and respected. And what I loved about that is that it's how it should be. You know, if when I raise a family, I want it to be this way. Also, with my husband, you know, I want us to be able to talk to our kids openly about any issue, and I want it to bring us closer together too.
I remember I had once asked the show's co-creator and showrunner Gloria Calderon Kellett what storylines they hadn't explored yet, and she wanted the mom's character Penelope to date a black man, to sort of touch on the very real internalized racism that exists in our community far too often. Sadly, they never got to that storyline because the show had gone through so many network changes, and is it getting renewed, is it not? And sadly, it was one of the many shows where I was a victim of COVID. But I think that would have been such an interesting thing to see, like the grandma's reaction, because they did a colorism episode on the show, sort of talking about like, oh, like no, they were white, but we were Cuban. It's like, well, they were also from Cuba. It's like, well, it's different. It's like, it's not. But I just love how they sort of tackled those different issues. And Sylvia, what about you? What's a more recent representation that's impacted you?
With Love, hands down.
Love it.
I binged, I think, both seasons, definitely season 2, but just seeing an entire family come together and still support one another, and just the diversity even within the family, right? Having a trans Latina and having a gay character and him marrying and everything that goes through, and interracial everything's. I feel like that, to me, I just kept watching. I was like, yeah, I get it totally. And the way that it was written too, to follow all the entire year, to me was fantastic, because we really got to see the family through all of their issues, right? And parents too. Like, it was, to me, it was more authentic than I've seen other shows. Sometimes I feel like it's really tokenistic, and with Love, I just felt it all really flowed.
Yeah, definitely. Everything just felt very natural. I feel like that show was really perfectly cast, and I hope it gets a third season. I'm not sure if there's news about season 3 or not, but yeah.
The seasons
And
aren't
Andy,
long enough on that show.
say again?
The seasons aren't long enough on that show.
Yeah. They're going to run out of holidays quickly, though, if they have long seasons. And Andy, what about you? What comes to mind as a recent storytelling that's impacted you?
I'm gonna be honest. Like, I haven't seen anything that really represents Latina lesbians that look like me. You know, so I do hope that it changes in the future. I'm actually I'm working on bringing that to the table. So hopefully in the future. But to be honest, every time I do see lesbians that are in shows, they're usually light skin, tú sabes, o blanquita. And I would like for them to do more stuff with black and brown, like, people that look like me, my kind of hair too, because we exist, And I would like to see more butch mothers, because I have stepchildren, and not all lesbian women are feminine. that are moms, So I would like to see a mother that looks like me,
And I'm curious, are there any specific role models or mentors who have played a significant role in your journey in each of your respective fields, as both someone of the LGBT community and as someone that's Hispanic or Latino? And what lessons or guidance do you feel that they provided during that time?
Well, a person that I know growing up, I was like, oh my God, she reminds me of me, was on Set It Off, Queen Latifah. But she's not Latina, pero she's still we black and brown. So
yeah.
But I do feel that I also come from a generation that was in between of coming out and it being okay from it not being really okay at that time, you know, like I come from the don't ask, don't tell era.
Right.
So I do see the difference now. I just want to see more morenita, you know, there's a lot of morenitas out there.
Sort of going back to One Day at a Time, I remember there was an episode where I believe it was Stephanie Beatrice played a lesbian aunt, and they came with their wife, and someone's like, yeah, we were all at the wedding, don't you remember? She's like, that was a wedding? I thought it was just a fancy barbecue. Such a silly episode, but such a sweet sort of moment of, because they also are of the don't ask, don't tell generation. You know, I remember they had this sort of a recurring gag in the episode saying like, oh well, he's just like that gesture of he's a little which like we all grew up seeing around, definitely. But Daniel, what about for you? Who was a mentor or role model you had?
So I've been really, really lucky to have a really good support system at home. My partner, my fiance, I would consider him a huge motivation and mentor for me, especially since he's been in my shoes in the past. So he really made sure I made space for myself in these corporate environments, and to not shy away from your boss just because you're Hispanic. You were brought in for a reason, for your point of view, so make sure it's always being heard or seen. And he's just really awesome, and I'm really lucky to have him.
That's so sweet. And
you
Sylvia,
meant like,
what about for you?
I'm sorry, did I get it? Did I feel like I didn't answer the question right now that I hear Daniel answer the question. You meant like somebody that I know, or in like TV world?
Well, either one. I feel like we sort of can get those role models as actors, or that we might never met. But for you, Andy, is there like a role model you had in your personal life, that, or a mentor, someone that like sort of took you under their wing?
Like I'm sorry, Sylvia, if I'm taking your time. I hope I'm not. But like I come from the
look, I'm your fan, so
it was, I had to learn everything on my own. So I really didn't have that guidance myself. I had to look into like keeping it in the closet and figuring things out on my own. So
yeah. And Sylvia, what about you?
Someone that I've just watched over the years and seen their evolution is Sara Ramirez. And I identifies not so much with her journey, because I'm still a she, but just seeing, I think because she's from the West Coast and she's from the border, and just seeing her evolution, standing in her own truth, well, her truth to begin with, and then continuing with that and being in their truth. And then, I mean, just the fact that they're hot as all hell. Oh, okay, I'm not going to get flustered. But like, I enjoyed, I mean, even back when they were on Grey's Anatomy and that storyline and having that, I think also because, she, at the beginning, they played a bi character, and I was so starved for that on the screen, right? To see her go from a male doctor or a male partner to a female partner, and then what she navigated with, I know, a co-parent and a donor, and all these things. Like, it's like, yeah, okay. And I know that's a character, but I'm saying her as an actress, or they as an actor, and seeing where they've taken their own career and what they're involved in as far as activism. I mean, I just, all hail.
Yeah. Sara is one of the few sort of very, very vocal and active, bi actors out there. And it's very frustrating when you see headlines of an actor or a celebrity or someone coming out as bi, and there's always those comments of like, oh, that they're just like, that's a stepping stone for them to come out as gay or as lesbian down the line. And it's so frustrating to see that. And sometimes within our own community, it's like, oh, they're lying to themselves. you know, they're going to go through X, Y, and Z. And it's just, you know, the lack of sort of education on that is very, very frustrating. I love how active Sara is in that. She really wants to educate people on like what a bisexual identity means, because it's so rare to see out there, sadly.
Oh yeah. If I hear one more time, oh my gosh, you have double the choices, I'm like, excuse me, someone still has to like me back. I don't like, it's
Like
not
more like double the rejection. I don't know what you're
right?
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, that's usually what the narrative is. It's like, oh, you're, you know, everyone must love. It's like, no, nay. But for those of you who are in corporate settings, you know, what are some initiatives or strategies that have helped you and, you know, the organizations you work with to sort of foster that sense of inclusion of the LGBT community? I'm sort of curious with everyone in their respective fields. But Andy, let's start with you for this one.
I think what has helped me is like, okay, so before I moved out here, right? My brother, you know, I will always tell him like, I'm not gonna feel included. You know, I'm black and I'm a lesbian and look at my hair. And his response was like, that's perfect. That's what they need. You know, so
Exactly.
you know, having that reaction from my brother gave me the confidence of walking into a room and feeling like I belong there.
Mhm.
You know, and sometimes I don't like, I don't see how can I say this? Like I don't see the, okay, I'm bad at explaining things. I'm gonna try to explain as detailed as possible. When I walk in a room, I'm a human being walking in the room.
Mhm.
I don't care that I'm a lesbian. I don't care who accepts it or not. Or, you know, it's not like I'm saying, hi, I'm Andy, I'm a lesbian. You know, like you know, I'm more like I'm in my own world. And sometimes it's other people's reaction that reminds me that I'm a lesbian.
Mhm.
You know, so like let's say when you meet a female, to make sure that I know she's not gay, she'll be like, yes, because my boyfriend, or he's cute, you know, like these things are the things that remind me that I'm like, oh shit, yes, I'm a lesbian, but no, I wasn't, it's not where I was at, you know, I'm here to work and do what I have to do. And you know, so I always am human in myself before anything else. I don't let who I am stop. I no longer let that stop me from knowing that I can do things. I'm a creator. And no matter my sexuality, I know I can create great things. So I that's just how I walk into a room now than how I did before.
And
Like
Daniel, what about you?
with the career. My bad.
Yeah. And Daniel, what about you? What sort of comes to mind as things that have helped you with sort of feeling included, whether it's in or out of the workplace and in those sort of environments?
So I'm pretty fortunate that we have actually a DEI organization at work where we make sure, you know, everyone has some representation going on. As I mentioned earlier, I designed the campaign for Pride and Hispanic Heritage Month, but we also make sure to include Asian American Pacific Islander Month and a few other Black History Month, and very important to show that representation throughout the company. But as Andy was saying earlier, how you walk into a place and you're like, oh shit, I forgot I'm a lesbian. So, as some way of that, I forget the rest of the world isn't gay. So I would go into work wanting to talk to someone about something that I really loved from Drag Race or Real Housewives. You know, it's just very atypical gay things. And I'm like, oh, this isn't the crowd for that. I can't if you only knew how funny I am with this response, but I can't give it to you. So work is a safe environment, but I just have to remember it's also a corporate environment, and I gotta check myself sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. And I mean this completely jokingly, but you know, I just assume everyone's queer until they come out as straight, because everyone assumes the rest of us are straight. So why not flip that on its head? You know.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
true. Very true.
And the movie that Love Victor was based on, Love Simon, is sort of that was like the log line for the movie. Why is straight the default? And it's like, well, yeah, why is it? Why are we adding labels to people until it's otherwise specified? You know?
Yeah, that scene where the straight kids come out to their parents for being straight, I still,
That's such a good scene.
if
And,
only.
yeah. And Sylvia, what about you?
Oh, by the grace of the Almighty, I am a solopreneur, so I don't deal with those things for myself because I get to choose. However, when I was a teacher in an academic institution, very conservative, I remember joining the panel for Pride Week and being able to speak openly, being able to be a space for my students who were clearly having panic attacks and anxiety attacks because they were harboring this identity that they felt they couldn't share with their parents. To me, that's the best. I mean, for students to see that their teachers are there, we're going through similar things no matter what age, right? Because we still deal with the rest of the world. We still have people who want to impose their opinions on us or their views and how we should come across and how. So to me, it's not so much about the systems that are in place from my workplace, but being sure that I'm a voice and participating in any activities that will support others to know that they're not alone.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking of like, because I've known Sylvia for years at this point, so I was but make some smart ass comment, be like, well, as the head of DI and the head of HR in your company, yeah. But just I'm along with the many people who believe that teachers are some of the most important people on the planet and have such an impact on their students. And I hope that one day when maybe some of your former students are on a panel, they can be like, oh yeah, I had Miss Sylvia, she was like really cool and she sort of always welcomed us and stuff like that. And I know that's exactly going to be the case because y'all are fucking awesome. But sorry, I just dropped an F-bomb there, my bad. Whoops. But also I'm curious with some of the things that have been happening in the world recently. There's a lot of anti-trans legislation, a lot of anti-LGBT legislation. For any of those who are part of the community, who are listening or watching this after the fact, and maybe they're scared to come out, they're scared to make that public, to share that with other people, what words of wisdom, what words of encouragement do you have for them? It's a kind of heavy question, so I'll give everyone a second. But Andy, let's start with you whenever you're ready.
I think, don't let nobody rush you. You know when it's time, because nobody comes out like, hey, I'm straight, deep down we all know, but do come out. Don't stay in the closet, because come out for yourself, and when I say come out, that doesn't mean like you don't have to like tell anybody, hey, I'm gay. Just be yourself, dress how you want to dress, be how you want to be, and because it's like being in jail, not being yourself, and when you fall in love with someone else, they're in jail with you, and you're not fully happy that way. You could only hold it for so long. It feels more free to be you and not care what anyone thinks. Who cares if this person or that person is homophobic? That's their problem. That's not yours.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to say.
And Daniel, what about you? Any words of wisdom or encouragement for anyone listening that might be struggling right now?
Yeah, just as Andy said, don't rush it. Take your time. You still got to figure out who you are, and I look back to me coming out, and I'm very thankful no one rushed me and tried to like get it out of me, though I wanted it to come out of me a lot sooner. I'm thankful that I did it. It does get better. You just gotta be patient. You will find your community. You will find your safe space. Just give it time. Not everything happens overnight.
And Sylvia, what about you?
Yeah, piggybacking off of what Daniel said, so much of the fear that can come from telling our biological family or friends, coworkers, whatever safe spaces we think we have, come out and trust that if your biofam is meant to be in your life, then they will be there.
Yeah.
Just because someone is biologically and blood related to you does not mean that you have to choose them, does not mean that you have to take their toxicity. You do have a choice. And I think there's a lot of that fear that we're not going to have that anchor. We're not going to have that love anymore. And that may be true, but that does not mean that there isn't love out there for you. I recently saw a play based on the Arena Club that was really popular in LA back in the 80s, 90s, and up into the early 2000s. And, that was a family. A lot of the people that performed there, like, that's a family. So family and safe spaces look all sorts of ways. So if you need to find your safe space before you come out and tell your people, then that's fine. But know that you are the most important person in your life. And others will either accept you or not. But you also get a choice as to who you allow into your life and into your to receive your own love. Because your love is a joy and it's a privilege. So no one has to cut you off. You can choose who to cut off for your own sanity and your own, it doesn't mean that it'll cut off forever. They may need time to come around. But again, like Andy said, that's on them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing too?
Of course.
Like,
maybe.
A lot of us, I think we all can relate, because when you're coming out, we all feel like, is my mom going to talk to me? Is my father going to talk to me? Are they going to love me? Or whoever that lover is for you in your life. For me, it was my mother. I lasted 6 years without talking to my mom. And till this day, I can see the difference of her being so homophobic to the point of learning to love me even if she didn't agree. So it does change, accept those that you love. For example, no matter if my mom is homophobic or whatever, I still show her love and accept her that way, because I need to show her what acceptance looks like, and by accepting her with her own way, even though she doesn't fully accept me, if that makes sense. It's like you're teaching them something without them even realizing it. That it's up to them whether they learn the lesson or not. Whoever's meant to be in your life will be there, and whoever's meant to move out of your life, they go move. And it's just about your happiness.
Yeah, I think that it's often, we're sort of pressured into thinking as we're coming out, worrying about everyone else's reaction. And we often forget, especially when kids are so young, come out to yourself first, accept yourself, love yourself, give yourself a hug, and just, come to terms with your identity. It's who you are. It's not going to change. Who we are inherently does not change. We don't become less Latino as time goes on just because we say so or because we feel like it.
Yeah.
We don't become, it doesn't change. It's embedded in who we are. So, I didn't come out until I was 24 years old. And mind you, come out to the first person. I knew since I was very little that I like both boys and girls. That was very plain and simple. That when you're young, when your hormones are going, whatever. And, I just had to come to terms with like, okay, who am I going to tell first? Who's the person who I know is going to give me the response I want and the one that I need? And I came out to my best friend, and still one of my dearest friends today. And eventually like my cousin, my sister, and then just one day posted on social media. I was like, okay, here's my journey, because I don't feel the need to, have a whole fanfare about this because it's my identity and it's, you know, I never came out as straight. So, you know, sort of having that journey, it's so different for every person out there. But for those listening who may, you know, need a little bit of guidance, just listen to what all these folks said and just, you know, focus on yourself first because you matter most in your life.
Yeah.
You know, above all else. But Sylvia, Andy, and Daniel, thank you all so much for joining us, and for everyone for joining us for our Revolucion for this LGBTQIA and Latinidad representation panel. An extra special thank you to the Sacred Heart University School of Communication, Media, and the Arts, and of course to our wonderful host Solo Wafi. Don't forget to check out the rest of our schedule of interviews and panel discussions at revolucionhhm.com. That's revolucionhhm.com for a complete schedule of all of our events. And you can follow us on all of our social media platforms at Todo Wafi and at revolucionhhm. Thank you all so much. Thank you for joining us.
Desde Nicaragua hasta Costa Rica, con esta canción todo mundo se identifica. Llamen a los chilenos y a los cubanos, llamen a Puerto Rico y a los mexicanos, que ya se armó la rumba. Desde Panamá hasta Ecuador, vámonos a Perú y luego hasta Salvador. Que se escuche en Brasil y Argentina. Yo quiero un grito de mi gente latina y levantaré mi bandera, estando en mi país o estando allá afuera, porque para mí, mira, no existen fronteras.